Buonasera a tutti, benvenuti all'Istituto Italiano di Cultura, welcome everybody. Tonight we have the presentation of the book that I personally love very much, The High Mountains, the Otto Montagne in Italiano, just translated by Simon&Schuster, and I think that is going to be released next week. But we have the copy here, and so if you want to buy one and to have it signed by Paolo Cognetti at the end of this presentation, you could. I want to thank Rakesh Satyal for all the help in organizing this event. Paolo Cognetti is born in Milan in 1978. And he lived between Milan and the mountains. But I would like to underline his passion for New York, because we are here in New York, and that has found expression in various writings, including New York è una finestra senza tende, 2010, Tutte le mie preghiere guardano verso ovest, in 2014, the series Scrivere New York, Writing New York, and Travel Among Brooklyn's Writers, and the anthology of selected American authors, New York Stories. So I think that he could also speak about his love with this city. Le Otto Montagne is his first novel, and follows 3 collections of short stories: Manuale per ragazze di successo, Una cosa piccola che sta per esplodere e Sofia si veste sempre di nero. The Eight Mountains won in 2017 Italy's most prestigious literary award, Premio Strega, and it has been published in more than 30 countries. And I want to say, because in Italy every year there is a lot of controversies about Premio Strega, about the power of the publishing houses and so on. But I have to say, I'm also a member of the jury of Premio Strega, and I have to say that if I look at the winner of the last 3 years, Nicola La Gioia, Edoardo Albinati, and Paolo Cognetti, I have to say that I think that they are among the finest writers in Italy in this year, and so also if there is the power of publishing houses, they are good in using the power because they made very good choices. And Paolo Cognetti today will be in conversation with Edmund White, and I want to thank him to accept our invitation. Edmund White is a very, very well-known American writer. His books include 3 autobiographical novels: A Boy's Own Story, The Beautiful Room is Empty, and The Farewell Symphony, and a biography of Jean Genet, for which he won the National Book Critics Circle Award, and many other things. Professor of creative writing at Princeton University, White has received many awards and distinction, and he has recently obtained the PEN Saul Bellow Award for Achievement in American Fiction, conferred every year to a living American author. Edmund White, who has spent long periods of time in Europe, lives in New York City, and his latest work of imminent publication is a non-fiction book, That Unpunished Vice, A Life of Reading. So please enjoy the conversation between Paolo Cognetti and Edmund White.
I thought we could start with you explaining what the title means. What does 8 Mountains mean?
Oh, it was a legend in Nepal. I'm in love with that country. I've been.
You just came back?
Yes, last time I was there in October, and it's a legend that Pietro, the main character, meets in his life in a trip in Nepal, and a porter tells him that the world is like a mandala with a high mountain in the center, the holy Mount Meru or Sumeru of Hindu and Buddhist. And on the border of the mandala, there are 8 mountains that are the rest of the world, the continents. And so the porter says that there are people made to try to climb the Meru, the mountain at the center of the picture, and people that have the destiny to go around the 8 mountains. So Pietro understands with this legend the sense of his friendship with his old friend Bruno that never went away from the small village in the Valle d'Aosta where he was born. Here we have a Valdostana, a girl from Valle d'Aosta, my friend Chiara. So we are two from our beautiful mountains.
Great. Well, I mean, we should talk about what the basic story is about heterosexual male friendship, and I say heterosexual being who I am, but anyway, I mean, because it's very interesting to read about this extremely intense friendship that develops, but almost non-verbally, between a guy who is from Milano and the other guy, and his family goes up into the Valle d'Aosta every summer, and he becomes best friends with this guy Bruno.
Yes, they don't speak so much because they are shy,
They're shy.
and also because
They're always doing something.
yes, and they didn't learn from their fathers, because at the beginning of the novel, it's a story of an education. A moment ago, we were speaking about Natalia Gisburg, Lessico Familiare. It was an important model for me, because in Natalia Gisburg autobiography, she speaks about an education and starting from a family language, the language that we speak in our families. In this family, in Pietro's family, people don't speak, but they walk in the mountains. So Pietro's father teaches him to go to the mountains like a form of education, like a kind of education.
Yeah.
So Pietro learns to walk, to work also, to hike, but he doesn't learn to speak. And with his friend Bruno, they do a lot of things together. They build a house.
They build a house.
They hike. They have adventures when they are children, but they never speak so much.
Yeah, I think that is so true of certain male friendships, is that they're not very verbal.
Mhm.
And people on the outside think, oh, they're not really communicating, but they are.
With bodies also.
Yeah, with bodies and with adventures,
Yes.
things that they live through. I think that, I think that acts are more important than words in their world, doing things, you know.
Yes.
Yeah. And one of there's a big contrast between the country, the mountains, and the city. I mean, Bruno only goes to like 3 cities in his whole life, and they're too noisy for him.
Yes.
And he wants the silence of the mountain. And I love a lot of the things you said in the book about solitude, that solitude was a place that you have to learn to live in.
Yes.
And yet it has its limits, at least for the narrator. He doesn't want to be alone all the time. I mean, he wants to have friends come up and to his house.
Yes, there is I think the real topic of the book is the relation between our need of solitude and our need of friendship. Something that I experienced because years ago I went to live in a cabin on the mountains, like some Toro thing, because I was in crisis with my life in Milano. I lost my job. I had a love story that was getting bad, and so I went to go in that baita, in that small cabin at 2,000 meters in Valle d'Aosta, and the things that I wrote about solitude are my thought about solitude. It's a place. It's like a room.
Like a room.
It's like a place where I want to go because I need concentration, silence, because I need this dimension to work, to write. But it's not a house where I can live forever.
No.
It's like a private room.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do you do most of your writing there?
Yes.
In the house?
Yes. I work only there.
But you have a dog, so that helps.
Yes. Dog changed everything in my life.
Yeah.
Yes. Lucky the dog. He was supposed to be a shepherd, but he wasn't able to work with cows. So his owner, Rambo, my friend Gabriele called Rambo.
Because he's a hunter, right?
Yes, the dog is a hunter. So maybe he always ran away in the forest to follow the wild animals. And so I think that Rambo maybe wasn't so happy of his dog, and maybe Lucky was in risk of life. So I adopted him 5 years ago, and now he's my best friend.
Oh, good.
Really my best friend.
Great. How many books have you written?
How many? 8.
8.
That's why the title is 8 Mountains, so I know that I wrote 8 mountains.
I never can remember how many others.
You have to give a title like 500
Yeah,
words.
right. I know that you've written a book that is called "To Fishing in a Very Deep Puddle: Meditations on the Art of Writing Stories." And your whole beginning career was stories, right?
Stories and American writers. I fell in love with the short stories. I used to think also that I would write only short stories, that I changed my mind. And it's also a book about my teachers, about Carver, Hemingway, Grace Paley that you know,
Grace
that you knew,
Paley, yeah.
or Flannery O'Connor, all the American tradition, great tradition, starting from Hawthorne and Poe in short stories. And I also thought that all that writers were fishers. Why?
They were fishermen.
Yes,
Yeah.
fishermen, like Hemingway and Carver. So I started to think of fishing like a metaphor of writing.
Raymond Carver invited me once to go with him fishing, but I said I don't know how to do it.
How he was?
Oh, he was great. He was a big bear of a man, and he had been a huge drinker. Then he stopped drinking,
Yeah.
and he wrote some very good things. So, he's the only person I've ever heard who said, "I hate my children. They ruin my life." You know, you hear children always saying, "I hate my parents. They ruin my life," but never the opposite. I thought it was very original.
And do you think that is still important for young writers?
He's less often read now, but he's had an enormous influence, even if it's indirect, because I think young writers are influenced by people who were influenced by by Carver.
Mhm.
You know, the whole idea of minimalism, I think, was very important.
Because I see that now all American writers write this big book.
Well, they always do. You've written 3 books on New York, and one of them had an intriguing title, New York is a Window Without Curtains.
Yes.
Tende doesn't mean curtains?
Yes,
Or
tende.
Yeah.
Mhm. Because for an Italian it's very odd that you don't have curtains, because we are, I don't know, like obsessed with privacy. And my first memories in New York, I was 25, and I was here to work because I made documentaries, and an Italian publishing house asked me to make documentaries about young New Yorker writers, like I remember Colson White, Jonathan Lethem. You were so young, 15 years ago. Rick Moody, A.M. Holmes. So I met them for a week each to interview them, and also to know their private city, their private New York. And it was the way in which I started to know this city, following the lives and stories of my favorite writers. So I wrote that book that is a sort of literary guide to the city, starting from Melville and Whitman lives, Brooklyn and Manhattan, then Salinger, then Grace Paley, all my favorite New Yorkers.
Someplace or other you say that you're a writer of characters more than plots.
Yes.
And I felt that the plot was excellent in this book, but the characters are unforgettable.
Yes, I have also a writing rule, that Sant'Agostino quote, love and then do whatever you want. So my rule is love your characters and do whatever you want.
Whatever you want.
Yes.
Oh, that's good.
And that's why for me it's the most important thing. It's not about plot or I don't know. It's about knowing your characters, exploring their personality.
But there are things that are very artful in your book, like, for instance, the father is his wife's brother dies in an avalanche at the beginning of the book, and then Bruno dies and one at the end of the book. I shouldn't say that.
It's not a thriller.
And you've also written a cookbook. I notice in here they talk about the cheese, the toma, and the potatoes, and polenta, and the chamois.
Chamois.
Yeah, those are things they all eat.
Because I love cooking. I also used to work as a cook in a small restaurant in the mountains when I did the Toro thing. Then I finished my money, so I needed to work, a real work, not writing. And so I started to work as a cook in a restaurant, and food is always for me a way to know better. Also in New York, my second book was about food.
Really?
Exploring the city through
That's an interesting angle.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, because for me New York is the city of immigration,
Yeah.
and food is a thing that people bring from home. It's a way to bring home,
Yes.
and Italian, Jewish, African American, all this kind of food that New York have are a way in which people bring home with them.
I lived in Rome in 1970, and I had an Italian girlfriend who came to visit me in New York, and we went to Little Italy, and she was amazed by all these little ashtrays showing Mussolini,
Yes.
and then there was American Italians will put a little tiny lemon peel in the espresso, and that's something people did in Naples in 1900, and
Yes.
then they forgot about it.
Yes.
But there's she said America is the attic for European culture. It's where you put all the
In my house in Brooklyn, is the friend's apartment that I use when I'm here. I'm very close to the circle of citizen of Mola di Bari, circolo dei cittadini di Mola di Bari. And in my book tour, months ago, I was in Mola di Bari, and they said, oh, in Brooklyn, in my neighborhood, in Reduc, there is a circolo, and they said me, oh, we all have an uncle in Brooklyn. Yes, that's the uncle that send presents in Christmas.
Yeah, right. That's in French. That is the way you say a rich person. My American uncle, mon oncle d'Amérique.
Lo zio d'America.
Same thing.
Yes.
Well, have you written books for children?
Not for children, but I wrote a book with a painter, with a girl, an illustrator, and it was a short story about a kid that couldn't swim, so il nuotatore, the swimmer, like Cheever's story, and I think it can be also for children because it's about fear, our relationship with fear.
And you won the Strega Prize not only for adults but for young people.
Yes, I was so proud of that prize because
They give it. The
all
children give it.
not the children, the students of 16 years, 16 years old, and I was so proud because the Great Strega Prize is also a thing of politics, and the Students' Prize, I think it was a truly
Democratic.
yes. Yes.
Yeah, that's great. That's important. Let's see. Your parents were from the Veneto, and so you had a lot of languages swirling around you.
Yes.
They spoke to each other in the dialect of the Veneto.
They still speak
They
Veneto,
do.
yes.
And then you, I guess, speak Italian.
I speak Italian, but in Milano we don't have. We used to have a dialect, but Milano is also like New York, a city of immigration.
Yeah.
So in Milano, I grew up with many children of immigration. So from southern Italy, from Puglia, from Sicily. And I used to learn all that dialect.
Oh, really?
Then now I live in Valle d'Aosta, where they speak a dialect called the patois. It's like a French dialect. Tu parli il patois, Chiara? No. So I started to learn a little patois because you need it if you want to go to the bar in the night
Yeah, right.
with Rambo.
right. And toward the end of your book, you say, a place can be a custodian of your history. Maybe you don't recognize it in English, but that is a very interesting idea, that the mountains for him are a place that his whole history, his whole story.
Yes, because it's about roots. As I said, I don't feel that my roots are in Veneto or are in Milan. I don't know why. Maybe the spirit of Milan. It's not. Maybe in that city it's not possible to have real roots, actual roots. And I don't know, it's my experience. But the feeling to coming back home in Greek was the nostos, the back home, to be back home. I feel it just in the mountains. That was the place where I feel so happy and free when I was a child. And I forgot that place for years. Between my 20 and 30, I was in love with New York, with cities, with travels. And I used to think that mountains was a thing of my childhood, so I could forget it. But after that crisis of my 30s, I started to remember of that happy memories. And when the first time I went up in Valle d'Aosta, I felt that I was back home.
Back home.
Yes.
In the book, the narrator, his father dies. Fortunately, your father hasn't died, but the father leaves the son some property where he builds a house.
Yes.
Did you build your own house?
I'm building it.
Oh yeah.
Yes, with my first money from this book, I bought an old stable in my village in Estul, and I'm building a place like a rifugio alpino. On the Alps we have these old places called the rifugi.
Yeah.
They are for mountaineers. But I would like to work with students, artists, writers, to make a writers' colony, and it's a place of culture in the mountains. It's my project.
That's a great idea.
We are doing also a festival, a culture festival in the woods, art, literature, music, theater, and it's my work now because. It's also this novel in my village, in my region, in Valle d'Aosta. Also have a political.
Are you an anarchist?
Yes, I'm an anarchist, and I want to be also a political person. Where I live, I want to do something for the place. And I'm so sad because in mountains we don't have anything. We have just some tourism, some sport, but
skiing.
Yes, skiing.
The father in your book hates skiing.
We miss a lot. We miss a lot of things. We miss culture, art, music.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to do something.
That's great. That's wonderful. Well, I'm sure all of you speak Italian, and you'd rather be speaking Italian. So, does anybody have questions in English or Italian?
Yes, I have a question.
Yeah.
What's your relationship now with big cities? I mean, New York, not Milan. I hear you about Milan, okay, that you don't feel it like, sort of underground relationship with it.
Yes.
But with New York City, do you happen to miss it? What about your relationship with your landscape and the cityscape?
Yes, no, I don't miss it. It's like a young love for me, New York. And yesterday when I came back here, I felt that it was like a girl that you used to love, and you are happy to see her, but you don't miss her. Now I'm in love with Himalaya, with Nepal, Tibet. I'm already thinking of my new trip in October in Nepal. I will go to see Kanchenjunga in northeast of the country. This last autumn I was in northwest, so I'm starting to know better because I like to go again and again in a country. To know it. I'm not like a traveler that every time go in a different place. And I'm writing about Nepal. I was
Fiction or non-fiction?
no, not fiction, a travel book.
Uh-huh.
I was asking you about Peter Mathiesen. Peter Mathiesen was a New York writer that wrote an important book about Nepal, the snow leopard. It was a cult book in the 70s. Peter Mathiesen was at that period an hippie.
Yeah.
An hippie that
A very
after
rich hippie.
after many experiences also in Paris, also in New York, he went to Nepal to look for something. He was a Buddhist, and I went on his steps in my last trip. So I'm writing about Nepal, but also about a book, also about a writer, and it's the trip of a reader, like always in my guides, my travel books.
What's the highest mountain you've ever climbed?
Why?
The highest mountain.
Oh, it's not a mountain, because I was in this last trip. I went at 5,500 meters, and it wasn't a peak. In Monte Rosa, 4,500, but I have a mountain illness. I suffer mountain illness.
Like the character.
Yes. So every time for me is like I want to go up there, but my body is not
Rebels.
happy. Yes, rebels. So it's always a struggle between mind and body for me to go in the high mountains.
I thought it was interesting that in your novel, the mother is very happy at 2,000
Yes,
meters.
me too. 2,000 meters is my perfect
That's your
place,
limit.
because it's the end on the Alps is the end of the woods.
Yeah.
And from 2,000 meters, the high mountains, high pasture and rocks and glaciers can start. So it's from my house, I can decide to go up and have solitude and to be alone, or go down and stay with others.
Yes, sir.
So Northern Italy is full of mountains. What attracted you specifically to Valdosta?
Oh, just because it was the place of my childhood. I think my parents went away from Veneto, so Eastern Alps, Dolomites was the place of their youth. And in their move to West, they changed also the mountains. And Valle d'Aosta is very, from Milano, from Torino, we love so much that mountains. And so it's not my choice. It was my parents' choice.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I have a comment really. I'm surprised that you mention lessico familiare,
Mm.
because that was very in for my generation 50 years ago. So I'm
Yes.
surprised that young people like you were reading that.
Yes, but I think we had a golden age of Italian literature in that during the 50s, 60s.
Yeah.
We have a golden generation.
So happy. No, just to mention, at my 18th birthday in Italy, 3 friends they gave me this book. So I
Mm.
have 3 copies.
Yes.
Well, you know, it was just retranslated into English, and I went to a very interesting conference recently at New York University, where the daughter of Natalie Ginsburg was there, also the daughter of Italo Calvino,
Oh my goodness.
yeah, and the various translators. It was an amazing evening.
We had a golden generation with Calvino, Pavese,
Yeah.
Fenoglio, Primo Levi.
Because I live here for a long time, so I don't know what really Italian they read today.
Well, in this interview that I listened to of you, and my time's not very good, but you seem to think that we're now living through a great period of Italian literature.
Oh, we have a good generation, I think, yes, people, I know a lot of writers of my age, 30, 40, and they write so well, and also not so well, but they write important books about our times, about our country. I think we have a new sense of responsibility of our work in relation of our country and age.
which Americans don't.
I don't know
I
because
mean, Americans don't have any political sense. They have, they might say, oh, I'm a Republican or a Democrat, but they don't really have any analysis of class or, or maybe race, but not class.
yes. Now I sometimes I interview some American writers, and now they all say I don't want to speak about Trump, but you have to speak.
You have to
about
speak
it.
about
Yes,
Trump.
yes.
No, I mean, that's the kind of, there's this sort of very unanalyzed art for art's sake notion that American writers have. It's a very escapist idea, and they don't really confront political questions in the way Italians or French people do. Anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very true that.
What?
It's very true. It's what we said, I agree completely with you. I have children in city country, it's so different from when I was to the age in Italy. It's different.
Yes, very different.
It's
Yeah.
very different.
What were you going to say? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so you said that your book, which I really love, is about male friendship and very complicated one. And there's also another very popular book, especially here in the US, it's about friendship, female friendship.
Elena Ferrante.
That's the
Yeah.
Ferrante question.
Yeah, you already have the answer already. So are there similarities? Could have you written a book with two female main characters? Do you see any resemblance? Do you like the book?
You like to write about women, don't you? I mean, you said that in an interview, I think.
Oh, I didn't even read Ferrante's novels.
Yeah?
No.
So no.
So snob, no, because I think a writer has to read only things that
Useful.
yes, only his teachers. I don't know. We don't have to read everything because it's very dangerous also for a writer.
Here in New York, she's kind of a
Yes, I know.
A goddess, yeah.
I know.
Yes.
Who are some of your favorite writers, contemporary Italian writers? Who do you?
Oh, I love so much Mario Rigoni Stern. He was died 10 years ago, and he was a man of that generation.
Who also wrote about the mountains.
He wrote an important memoir about war in Russia. He was an Alpino, a soldier that participated to that unlucky war.
The Lieutenant of the Snow.
The Sergeant in the
Oh,
Snow.
Sergeant.
The Sergeant in the Snow. But then that's a book that we study in school. We know it very well. But after that book, he started to write about mountains, about people of mountains, about animals, woods, trees. There is a beautiful book about trees, and I don't know why.
Primo Levi too.
Also Primo Levi, and they were good friends, Primo and Mario. They were like the boy from the city and the boy from the mountains, because also Primo Levi loved so much mountains and Valle d'Aosta in particular. Primo Levi was arrested in my valley, in Brusson, that's very close where I live, in December of 1943, and he loved so much. Also after the war, he came back. He went back to Brusson, to that valley, for his vacation. And I don't know really. I didn't know why while I was writing this novel. I didn't understand why we have mountains and also sea, but in our Italian tradition we have always the city or the town.
Yeah.
We have urban literature.
Moravia.
Maybe because we have so ancient culture, urban culture.
Yeah.
But we are the writers that wrote about mountains and sea are very.
Not so many.
No, not so many. And Mario Rigoni Stern, I think, was the greater about mountains.
I noticed you mentioned in the interview that you like Tondelli.
Tondelli, yes.
I wrote an introduction to one of his books, yeah.
Yes. Tondelli was a good teacher also, because he started during the 80s. He started to work with young writers, and also to give them books to read. And he loved so much a New York writer that was Hubert Selby Jr.
Hubert Selby.
Hubert
Yeah.
Selby. Hubert Selby.
Last Exit to Brooklyn.
Last Exit to Brooklyn is also my favorite Brooklyn book.
Crazy. Yes, ma'am.
Sure. Can I speak in Italian? Is it
Yes.
okay?
Yeah.
Is it okay? Ok. Considerando che da come ti sei presentato sei stata sia la persona che ha girovagato un po' per il mondo, ma anche quella che poi è ritornata alla montagna di riferimento, tu come ti senti? Come quello che vaga fra le 8 montagne o come quello che scala la montagna del centro?
Credo che di aver avuto un po' due età finora. Rispondo questa volta in italiano. In questo dualismo c'era tanto un modello che per me veniva dai libri di Ermanesse. Questo romanzo era anche un modo un po' di ritornare alle letture dell'adolescenza, quei grandi romanzi di formazione, e cercare un po' di comunicare con loro. Allora Ermanesse aveva scritto questo romanzo Narciso e Boccadoro, in cui Narciso era un monaco, Boccadoro un artista, e era la storia di questa grande amicizia però tra due uomini, ragazzi e uomini, e poi tra due destini molto diversi. Il cercatore che restava fermo in un posto e faceva della sua vita una ricerca interiore, e l'artista che invece vagava per il mondo. E sono due metà che forse non sono proprio due personaggi, io credo sono due metà di noi. Per cui sì, ho avuto il mio periodo di vagabondaggi, adesso mi sento molto radicato in realtà in questa montagna, anche perché appunto sto costruendo tutti i miei progetti lì. Non è più solamente un luogo di solitudine, meditazione, scrittura, è diventato anche un luogo di relazioni e di grandi imprese, ecco.
Yes, ma'am.
Me?
You.
Gina Trottano, I arrived late, but in any case, here's the thing. I'm a publishing professional. Posso parlare in italiano o in
Sì,
inglese?
sì.
Come è meglio?
Forse in inglese capiscono tutti.
In inglese, ok. I'm a publishing professional. I have my own office. I've been in the process the last month and a half. I've been relocating my office, and I had to throw out books and books. I haven't been able to give them to anyone, not even libraries. They all say, well, everything is on the internet, which, makes me really, really, really feel bad, because my entire life is books.
You should try Housing Works.
I'm sorry?
Housing Works. It's a charity that for AIDS, and they accept all books. I gave them 2,000 books recently.
It's 23 Street between 2nd and 3rd Avenue.
Well, I will try that too. I called the charities as well. But the point here is that it seems to me that whereas here books are really being knocked down, in Italy there seems to be a resurgence for a lot of books, because I've seen...
No, it's the same in Italy also.
No, ma ho visto, ci sono due fiere, una a Milano, una a Trieste, a Torino, and it would seem that people love to go to these places and read.
Yes.
Whatever be the case, I attended a conference at Random House about a month ago. It's really sad. People don't want to read. Random House is putting all their books on audio. People want to listen but not read.
This is when
So-
they drive. When they drive their cars, they listen.
No, not necessarily. They are listening in their homes also. They are listening in their homes even as families. So I ask myself, who will know how to write, how to spell words? Already there is such a problem, right? So in a few years to come, I mean, we are going back to the oral tradition of 2,000 years plus. An observation.
Well, I know, like Susan Sontag used to say that if you were from Mars and you wanted to read all the world literature, you should learn Italian, because more books are translated into Italian than into any other language. And it's a disgrace how few books are translated into English. In French, about 30% of the books are translations, but in America, forget it. But luckily, we get some good books. Yes.
Yeah, I have a question about this. I had the books in my hands several times when I was visiting Milano. All my friends were reading it in English, but I never bought it, I never read it. So tonight I was kind of hoping you will have some copies in Italian as well. But now that you have described your love for American writers and this kind of meet you had and how you came here first to interview them, the fact that you see your own book, your own words in English, how did you feel about that when you saw it? And do you recommend that even if we are Italian, if we live here for a long time, do you recommend we read it in English, or we wait, or we have someone send it to us from Italy as usual? Like
No, I think that in Italian is it was not easy to work also with the translation. The book has been translated in 39 languages.
no, but
No?
your meet
Yes,
was
yes,
English, so
yes. My meet was English, but when I could work with the translation, I saw that it's so different.
it's
Yes.
okay.
And it's like a book that somebody else wrote. Yes. So if you can read it in Italian, for me it's better.
Yes.
To go back to what you were saying before about Hermann Hesse and destiny. In between the two characters, there's one character that chooses the mountains, and whereas Bruno, Pietro chooses the mountains, and in a way finds a significance, a path for his own life. Whereas I felt in reading that Bruno, in a way, had a different relation to the mountains, so that there was an ambivalence.
Yes.
Maybe an ambivalence similar to the one that you were mentioning when we were talking about the need at the same time for solitude and for relations. And I felt that one of the main scenes was when Bruno turns to the mountain and says, my destiny is not necessarily this.
When he said
So-
goodbye.
Yeah. So,
He kind of wants to escape, but he doesn't really
Yeah.
escape. I mean, he doesn't want to just live in the mountains. But there's this interesting character called the Homo Servazzo.
Homo servazzo.
Yeah, who's this sort of savage man. There's a myth of him. And Bruno sort of becomes a little bit like that. Because Bruno learns how to climb the mountains from looking at chamois. You know.
Yes, Bruno is not free. Is not free to. Is just free to become a drunk, or become I don't know, a worker in the village. It's not free to go away.
in a way, I felt it in a way as also a meditation on destiny,
Mhm.
on how,
And the mother, as you recall, the mother wants to take
Yeah.
Bruno to
the
Milano
city, yes,
and get him educated in a proper profession.
yeah.
But Pietro thinks that's a terrible idea.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's an interesting part. Why does Pietro?
Well, it's partly selfish. He wants to have a friend in the mountain.
That's also because I have a friend like Bruno, and and sometimes I think that is è troppo difficile da dire in inglese, posso dirlo in italiano.
Sì, no, io ho parlato in inglese.
Sai ti ricordi gli stiliti che erano quegli eremiti, quei monaci che stavano sulle colonne?
Sì.
E in un certo senso stavano lì per tutti, cioè la presenza, l'eremita non è sicuramente una persona felice, è qualcuno che paga per tutti, è un po' il nostro uso dei santi, no? L'esistenza di un santo, l'esistenza di uno che sta lassù sulla colonna o là nella grotta ci permette di essere di perdonare noi stessi per essere invece molto più deboli, difettosi, eccetera. E quindi è questo che era successo a Pietro, no? Che l'uso che lui fa dell'amico montanaro, cioè sapere che c'è uno che è puro, che è lassù in cima, che non scenderà mai da lì, è molto rassicurante per noi che invece non sappiamo, non mettiamo le radici, non abbiamo un'idea così solida del nostro destino, no? E è questo che lui diceva in quella scena. Pensavo di voler bene a Bruno, ma invece stavo solamente pensando all'uso che io volevo continuare a fare di lui, cioè essere sicuro che lassù c'è uno che se ne starà per sempre in montagna. È un po' un santo.
Simon Stylites. Well, let's take one more question and then, yes.
I'm going to say in English. I read your book as I was climbing the mountains of Alto Adige, and I remember every time going back home at night, I would read the book and find in the book the same silence that I experience in the mountains. And I think there's many similarities between somebody who hikes, who climbs the mountains, and a writer. There's the same fatigue, the same hard work, the same soul searching, the same solitude, the same silence. And so I wanted to ask you to elaborate on that, on this similarity between a writer and a climber. And also I wanted to ask you about female characters in this novel, because it seems to me they're all in the background, you know, the mother and the girlfriend that then becomes Bruno's wife, and even the little daughter, they're all in the background. So I wanted to ask you if you wanted to write intentionally more male-centered novel.
Yes. Yes, I wanted to do it because I wrote a lot about girls and women in my past books, and I wanted to write about men. But this story will be impossible without women, because men in the novel are like, I don't know, they are very selfish. They are like mountains that never move, never do anything for others, and they have all those women that work for them, that help them to have a relationship with others. So it's like again a political way of life, the female point of view of this book. And yes, I think that hiking is like writing, but I don't know if in writing you have a summit to reach.
Do you have altitude sickness?
Yeah.
As a writer?
Yes, sometimes. Because for me, writing is like an everyday discipline. And it was something that I learned also by American writers, because when I was a teenager and I started to write, I used to think that writing was about drinking a lot and working during the night, and I was a Bukowski fan, and I liked the Bukowski, Kerouac, John Fante. But then when I met real writers, they told me that writing was everyday work, and you have to do it in this way, otherwise you don't make so much. And so for me, for many years, it was the first thing that I did in the morning. I used to wake up at 7 and write until 9. Then I went out to go to work.
Thank you so much. This is very enjoyable. Thank you.
Thank you.